Media live stream. We'll be broadcasting from IK's new Sunrise Studios in Sunrise, Florida, and we're celebrating the launch of the Total Studio 3 Max bundle. This has 124 of IK's most powerful music titles, 56 plugins, over 14,600 sounds, tons of presets, and everything you need from composing to mastering. We're going to be talking to various artists, producers, and engineers over the coming weeks, so let's get started. Hello, welcome to IK Live. I'm Dave Kerzner. We're celebrating all this month, next month, and beyond the release of Total Studio 3 Max. It's a bundle of all of the wonderful IK multimedia plugins and standalone software for Mac and PC, virtual effects, virtual instruments, and all sorts of different tools for your studio. And today we're going to be focusing on the MODO series, which is Moto Bass and Moto Drum. And these are two virtual instruments for bass and drums. You may have noticed, maybe you took part in the crazy promo deal with the Moto Bass SE and Moto Drum SE, which is just finished. But those two products give you a few of the instruments. You get two basses in Moto Bass SE, and you get two drum kits as starting points inside Moto Drum SE. I say as starting points because these are two physical modeling. The Moto series is all about physical modeling virtual instruments, which means you can change all sorts of aspects of the instruments that you can't do with a sample-based virtual instrument. So it's different in that sense, but I'll get into that. I'm going to mainly talk about today Moto drums, but just to understand Moto Bass, the full version, of course you can upgrade if you have SE at any point and get 14 basses, all different styles. I think the Moto Bass SE has the 60s P bass and a 70s bass, and also Moto Drums SE comes with the studio kit and the jazzy kit, but there are 10 full kits in the full version. So I encourage you, if you like that, to try out the demo for the full versions, but I also like to point out that when you look at the whole Total Studio 3 Max bundle, you get a better deal for everything upgrading to that. And you can look and see, if you already own some IK plugins such as these or anything, what your upgrade path and the cost, because you save a lot of money with an upgrade cross-grade. Okay, so I'm going to talk about Moto Drums today because this is exciting. It's now in it's the first time it's been included in a Total Studio bundle. So in Total Studio 2 Max, Moto Bass was included, but then Moto Drums came out after, and so it wasn't included until now in Total Studio 3 Max. So if you're thinking about upgrading to Total Studio 3 Max, even if you have Total Studio 2 and you didn't go out and buy Moto Drums on its own, now in that upgrade you would get Moto Drums. So let's have a look. I'm going to just play through the 10 different kits so you can get an idea of what it just comes with right out of the box. There are a lot of things that you can customize inside Moto Drum. You have all of these different tabs here. I'll start off with actually mapping, because I remapped these kits a little bit differently to what I like. They come ready to go, sort of like loosely around the GM standard, but I changed a few things. I put, like, for instance, the kicks. I put all 4 kicks. There's two keys normally per kick, and they're off in different places. I like to put them in the same place so I can do this. Little rolls, almost like double. Yeah, and change it up even. This is kind of fun. Something in preference. You can do anything you want. If you have an electronic drum kit, this works great with that, by the way. Or a keyboard, you can map it to anything, and it's really fast and easy. I have the mapping window open here, and what I did, another thing I did is I took the snare and I mapped it. I mapped a quiet version of it as a ghost note to A sharp, something I do when I map samples myself personally in drums. I just like it because you can do this. See, I'm using it as a ghost note. So this is a regular snare with a regular velocity curve. If you look here on A sharp 0, I put that velocity curve for it. So each note, MIDI note, can have its own velocity curve and be set to wherever you want. Instead of a clap, because I never use claps in my drum performances, even though that's a GM standard, on D sharp, I put a rim shot. So I like within finger's reach more articulations of the snare and the kick. Okay, so that's mapping. Now, if you go into the first, so here's where you choose your models, and that's where I picked those different kits that I showed you, the 10 kits. But in Customize, boy, you can really, really have a lot of fun. It gets deep. So, for instance, the first thing is any of the drums that you hit will light up on the screen there. And when you do, let's say I hit the snare, I'm like, okay, snare. It has this snare, but if I quickly just want to swap out the snare with any of the other snares, I do that. The rest of the kit is the same, and I'm just changing the snare here. Right? I mean, already we're starting to get into something I find incredibly fun and way faster than working with samples. It loads so fast, and it's so visual, it's easy to use. Look at that one. Everything I'm doing, I get saved back as a kit. Each one of these sounds great. So now you start to see the benefit of having, let's say, the full version of Moto drums versus, let's say, the SE, where you only have 2 kits and some of the snares to choose from. Having all of them gives you all the exponential possibilities of combining different snares with different tom sets and kicks and everything else. But each of these snares is totally customizable. So, like, let's say this snare, which I think looks like kind of like a superphonic, one of my favorite snares. You go over here and hit Edit Element, and now this is where the fun begins. If it wasn't already fun, now you can change all kinds of different things. I could choose between, do I want the top head to be clear or coated? Do I want pointed or sharp or rounded edges? Do I want the bottom head to be clear? Oh, the clear, it's set to clear. Okay, normally it would be clear. Do I want a large or medium-sized snares? Do I want to adjust the tension of the snares underneath? Make it loose or tighten it up. I can change the tuning of the top head. I can change the dampening. Now, with a real drum kit, and this is what I like about it, these are the kinds of things you could do in the studio with a drummer and a real drum kit. You're like, can you dampen that? And so they can put like tape on it or different ways to dampen a snare head. You could choose different snares. Now, when you have, let's say, this is a 14-inch superphonic style, like in the style of a Ludwig, but you have a 14-inch, you could choose, I want a 15-inch. I want a 16-inch. Those are rare. It's like a deeper sound. You could choose the depth between 5-inch, 6-inch depth. This is, to me, this is so much fun because if you had I do a lot of sampling myself. That's what I'm sort of known for with Sonic Reality and for different companies, including for Sample Tank with IK. And I love it. It's great. It's a capture. It's an audio capture. It's a recording of the real thing in a real studio, and that has its place, but it stays that snapshot. It's kind of like this. I would look at like sampling versus physical modeling as like the difference between filming analog style and CGI. CGI, you can create anything, if you're good at it. And with analog, you have to kind of capture that recording in the studio. There's two different arts, but also two different ways to work with the plugin as a source, because with samples, you're pretty much, maybe you're blending room with directs and things like that, the mics, and you're processing it with lovely effects, recreating, outboard gear that you would have in a studio. So from T-Rax or Mixbox, you've got tube compressors and EQs and all those things, and mixing and reverbs and all that wonderful stuff, but you're processing an existing recording. With Moto, you can also apply all those effects, and you have some of them built in, which I'll show you, and some mixing built in Moto Drums, but you have access to almost like a virtual recreation of the original session, where you have that opportunity to change the snare out, or dampen it, or tighten the snares underneath. And that's just with the snare, and you have other options with the other drums. So you see what I'm saying? So it's like a drum synthesizer in a sense. You're generating the sound before you do the processing. Okay, so that's just one thing you can do with a snare, and I'm going to show you a few other things. All right, so, sorry, I was having a little bit of fun there. This is the next window over. You have playing style. You can actually choose which type of sticks, teardrop wood or teardrop nylon, or maybe no tip. You can choose which part of the drum that you want the left or right. So you have left or right stick per drum, so you can choose what position you want. Again, it's physical modeling. So it's generating the sound based on its own computational, math inside or whatever. It's not fixed, so it can adjust tonal parameters and transients and all those sort of things underneath. So it's a very powerful engine to be able to customize. And then going over here, you get room. This is fun, and one of the things I love about IK Multimedia plugins is that a lot of times they're just really, true to the musician's first philosophy, which is they're easy to use. It's very apparent. Like, you just get in there and you get going. You're a musician, you want to be creative. So this is a great example of that. The room, you choose the room. On the side here, you see, this hides away if you don't want to see it, but you have a room amount. So you can bring it up in volume, or you can bring it down, make it dry. If you want to hear them, and then you want to hear the different ones, you actually get to see it. So if you want to see a booth, right, change to a mid-size studio. A garage, complete with spare tires. Very realistic. A bunker. Large studio. A cathedral. A club. So, venue, a warehouse. But in addition to that, you get, I'm going to go back to, let's see, mid-studio, you get a mixer. Now, another thing I love about IK Multimedia virtual instruments is that because IK makes all these excellent effects like T-Rax, Amplitube, Sunset Sound Studio Reverb, and CSR Reverb, and Mixbox, and all these great effects, studio effects, we benefit, the royal we, me, you, the virtual instrument user, because those get ported over and used inside the mixer. So when you pull up the different compressors and EQs in here, it's not just some generic one, it's the compressor most likely maybe modeled after an 1176 or something else that you'd really want, like a model of a Fairchild or whatever it is, and a Pultec or a model of an SSL, you know. So I love that, because to me, like, that's the kind of quality of effects that I would want to use on drums. That said, personally myself, I use Moto Drum. Sometimes I use it dry, and then I process it with T-Racks, where you have you have Sunset Sound Studio Reverb and things like that to go like another level. And again, this to me is why this is one of the main reasons to upgrade to Total Studio 3 Max. Because yes, if you're on a budget and you want to just have a self-contained drum studio in a sense, you have that. So it's nice. You don't have to. You could at least start there and get used to it. But once you try it out, and you can try out most of the IK effects and a lot of the plugins, and just try it out for 2 weeks for free anyway, and just use it and get to know it. But and I encourage you to do that, because once you do that and you use it in your song, you realize I could take this even further. I mean, the combination of Moto Drum and Sunset Sound Studio Reverb is lethal. It's deluxe. I can't, so many top engineers and producers would agree with me on that. It is literally like having essentially like a drummer with a huge drum collection come into Sunset Sound, and you're the producer, and you're like, no, change this out, change that. I mean, it's a dream. It's my dream. It's many people's dream to be able to do that. And it's so cool that you can actually do that in the virtual DAW environment and everything. But anyway, so you have this, and you have 4 inserts per drum. It's very easy. You see the picture of the drum on top here. You have 2 effect sends per channel. You see this little scribble strip down here too, mute, solo. You can change the phase of it. So it's very handy. And then you have a master section here. You could choose the room overhead level overall there of the whole kit, and your effect sends, returns, and your buses and stuff. So it's just really handy to have, and panning and everything, a self-contained mixer, or again, you could do this inside your DAW. Then for those who don't play finger keys or drum pads or anything else, you have built-in grooves. And again, this is handy. You can choose through all these different grooves. You can choose whether you want to sync to your host tempo or not, and all sorts of great features there. So, and you can change the velocity, the volume. Everything is really neatly organized on here. So like I said, it's very easy to use, just going through these different things here. And then of course at the end, you can save back a preset and make your own customized kits to the song. And that's cool too, because let's say you tweak a drum kit to one of your songs, and then later on you're like, you know what, yeah, that kit from that song, let me load my kit that already was tweaked to this other song and use that as a starting point for your next song. So again, that's Moto Drum, part of Total Studio 3 Max, and to me an essential part of everybody's studio setup. So last year at the NAMM show, Winter NAMM show, I presented this Moto Drum, and I had with me Warren Huart from Produce Like a Pro, and last week we talked a little bit about that, so let's have a look at that clip now.
How's it going, Warren?
I'm good, Dave. How the devil are you?
I'm doing good, thanks.
People are starting to sort of point to the fact that the technology used inside of that is superior than actually playing back samples. What is your take on that?
In that world, you have other possibilities. You have flexibility. So for instance, with Moto Drum, it's not samples, so you have the ability to change the size of the drum, which type of heads, which type of the edge of the sticks and stuff, the depth of the drum, how the tension of the snare and how much snare rattle there is. I mean, there's, on the toms, so many things. And then you have some, of course, great IK effects built in a mixer and everything else. But to answer your question, I think the immediacy, the flexibility, and really, and look, me, that's what I do. I sample everything. My company, Sonic Reality. So I've sampled Neil Peart, I've sampled Nick Mason, I've sampled Billy Cobham and tons of drummers and drum kits in every shape and size. And I love that because a sample is a snapshot. It's a recording of the real thing. So that's great when you want a Bonham sound, you record that but like let's say, or a Ringo sound, but inside, but when you record it, let's say you're doing a Ringo Beatles type sound, which you and I both love the Beatles. So you're going to put tea towels on, and you're going to dampen this and that. You're going to put a pillow or a sweater inside the kick drum, and you're going to get that sound. But then once you record that sound, whether you're recording for an album or you're recording samples, that's that sound. But if you wanted to get every variation of how you dampen it, or every mic or everything else, it's just, it's time consuming, and you wouldn't be able to sample. It'd be a massive sample library. So what Moto drums can do, it would take a 1,000 gigabyte, terabyte, it would take to do as samples, because you're like, well, what if I do it with a smaller snare? Or what if and all the things you can change on the fly, it's just not possible with anything else.
What you touched upon there with drums, about putting it up against other sounds, the bass has been very, very useful for fixing problems. So if I've been given something to mix, because it's so unbelievably consistent and even, but still sounds natural, we did it on a track where we wanted the chorus to hit really, really powerfully. And quite often, obviously being a musician, we'll plug in the bass and play it. And I like what I did. But then when I came to mix it, I was like, I want a place between absolute perfection, and rawness. When I tried a keyboard sound, it just sounded like absolute perfection. When I tried playing it, it was too raw, and that's where we ended up with it. So I feel like we live in a place now, and I think you're saying that with the live drums things, where now it gives us so many more options. Like I don't know about you, but when I'm tracking bass for intonation purposes, I might literally just play one note, get it absolutely perfect, then play another note, but tune to that so the intonation is absolutely superb, especially with some of the younger players who tend to grab the neck a little bit and make it go a little bit sharp, and and they might hit it a bit too heavy, so it goes sharp and then drops back in tune. And just between you and me, I've used the bass to solve that problem quite a few times. And then of course, if I've got something synthetic and I want to add a texture to it, one of the great things about it is because it can be so even, it distorts really evenly as well, which is another thing. I think if somebody's going to try feeding it through some kind of saturation and mess it up a bit. You'll be amazed just how creative you can get with it, because it can really just fill in an energy when you're trying to glue guitars, heavier guitars to a kit. You can have that big fat rounded low end, then you just literally just take the high mids and above and just trash it out with distortion, and you can connect those huge heavy guitars, have the low cleanliness of it, but then also that distortion just blends in with the guitars, can get massive tones.
That's awesome. And by the way, so for everybody, be sure to check out Warren's Produce Like a Pro channel on YouTube. And I want to thank you for having you. We could talk. We will talk again more. We've talked on his show and on our show. You could check out this great, by the way, there's a really cool 4-hour stream at Sunset Sound. If you type in Warren Huart, Produce Like a Pro, IK Multimedia, or Sunset Sound together in any combination, you'll see that stream. It's still online, right, on your channel?
Oh, yeah, it's still online. That was pretty massive.
All right, so we're going to take a look at Moto Drum now. Here's an overview of that plugin, and both Moto Drum and Moto Bass come with Total Studio 3 Max.
IK Multimedia, the leader in software modeling technology, is proud to present Moto Drum, its first physical modeling drum virtual instrument. Using the power of IK's exclusive modal synthesis, Moto Drum delivers incredible customization and on-the-fly control over every element of your drum kit. Create the drum tracks of your dreams with access to every parameter of every drum in your kit, from size, tension, material, play style, and more. And you can do it on the fly to ensure your drum tracks fit perfectly into your mix. You'll never find control like this in a sample library. Moto Drum starts off by offering 10 different factory kits, jumping off points that cover a vast selection of diverse music styles. Choose between Black Oyster, for a classic vintage 1960s style sound. Plexi for a hammering 70s rock sound. Grungy, a cult symbol for alternative music. Rock Custom for plenty of punch and articulation. Extreme, a vintage metal weapon. Gentleman for a modern metal sound. Jazzy for a warm and punchy vintage jazz tone. Studio, a focused, versatile, and punchy sound for every kind of music. Reference, a major advance in design suitable for all genres. Bubinga, for a focused, punchy sound with rich low end. Moto Drum also includes 3 different cymbal sets, each containing a hi-hat, 2 crashes, 1 ride, 1 china, and 1 splash, as well as a few percussion instruments for compatibility with the general MIDI standard. You can swap any element of a kit for a different one from any of the other kits, giving you nearly limitless combinations of drums and cymbals to suit any style. Customize each piece in the kit with the deepest level of accuracy and flexibility. Change head type, tuning, and damping. Shell profile, diameter, and height. Snare type, snare tension, and shell resonance. And even the sympathetic vibration of other drums in your kit. And IK's revolutionary modal synthesis goes beyond just the kit itself. You can control the drummer's play style and technique, selecting the type of sticks and kick pedal used, and the location and precision of snare hits, to shape the tone and feel of your tracks instantly. Moto Drum's infinite round-robin feature ensures no hit is exactly the same for amazing realism. From there, choose the room for your drum kit, from a bone-dry booth to the dripping wet reverberation of a cathedral. Shape and sculpt the flavor of your kit with a complete suite of effects processors derived from T-Rex and Amplitube, and set the balance of the kit with a full-fledged mixer complete with auxiliary buses and direct DAW outputs. Moto Drum also comes packed with more than 1,400 MIDI patterns for instant inspiration. Browse grooves fast with smart filters, audition them, and then drag and drop them into your DAW to quickly spark new song ideas. With Moto Drum, you get inspiring sounds, limitless control, and instant inspiration, all in a single instrument. Moto Drum. Give your drum tracks a whole new life. From IK Multimedia.
All right, we're back. That was cool. Good to see an overview tight like that. You can catch more on ikmultimedia.com. But let's have a look here. Well, first of all, I saw some of your questions and I wanted to actually get to those, and also mention that I'm going to be giving away Moto Drum to one of you in a little bit. Just hang tight and stay with us here. Our social team, IK Multimedia social team, is going to pick a winner. I'm going to ask a question about Moto Drum. But before we do, I'm going to answer a couple questions. So I saw somebody say, boy, it would be great if it could load samples. And while I actually, being a sample guy, love everything to load samples, so I'm kind of with you on that. However, I think it would be a little confusing because this is a physical modeling instrument, and in order to get all the articulations and the adjustments and tweaking and everything, it's physical modeling, and so it could get a little confusing if samples were part of it, but user samples and things like that, it might just get, I don't know. But on the other hand, yeah, it's not a bad idea. But you can do that with Sample Tank 4 already. And it has some similarities in that it has, Sample Tank 4 has built-in effects. You have even more, actually. You kind of have like almost like a mix box inside Sample Tank 4. And if you haven't checked that out, I encourage you to do so, because Sample Tank 4 CS is free. So you could download it and try it out, and you can even load your own samples into that for free. So you might as well get that. So you can use them in tandem. So you could use like Moto Drum as a plugin, and then you can have Sample Tank for your samples on another track, and you can still get the job done. It's just maybe not as much fun if you were thinking like, hey, I could take a picture of my snare and load my snare in and put it right in there. I mean, maybe eventually that would be fun, but for now it is sort of its own animal, which is a physical modeling instrument. And by the way, if you have any other questions I did see a couple questions, although Rachel from the social team answered them. I saw in the chat window, but about upgrade paths and this and that. I will just say that if you took advantage of that crazy deal with Moto Bass and Moto Drum SE, and you're wondering, can I upgrade? The answer is yes, and you get a discount when you upgrade to Moto Drum Full or to Total Studio 3 Max. Check to see on the website what makes sense financially, because sometimes just for a few hundred extra bucks, you get like thousands of dollars of software, and you're like, you'll kick yourself if you didn't check. So I couldn't say that before Total Studio 3 Max was released, because Moto Drum up until now wasn't part of any bundle. So it was just its own thing. But now you have that choice between, okay, there's Moto Drum SE, there's Moto Drum Full, and then there's Total Studio 3 Max. And the way to do it is kind of like, just shopping tips from Squids here, is to just look around on ikmultimedia.com and see, all right, what would, if you're in, if you have a budget set aside for some plugins and for your studio and you're investing in your system and you want to take it to another level, that you would, look and see what other virtual instruments and effects that you might want, and then just do the math and go, well, actually, I would like Sunset Sound, which I highly recommend. It goes great with Moto Drum, like I was saying. If you want to make it sound like it's in a world-class studio, you have those rooms built in. But to me, they're great and convenient and fun. But I use Sunset Sound Studio Reverb on all my mixes now. It's just so good. So like that, maybe you'd want T-Rax for mixing and mastering, and as soon as even just that, probably if you add it all up, you're like maybe not that far away from getting Total Studio 3 Max. If you already own some IK plugins, it might even be cheaper to get Total Studio 3 Max, because Total Studio 3 Max sells for $8.99 if you just come off the street and you don't own any IK plugins before. But if you do, it could be as low as $4.99 or even lower if you own Total Studio 2 Max. I think what you have to do is you log in and with your username and everything, and you would add it to the cart. And then when it's in the cart, I think like a $100 or $200 coupon will show up in your cart, and then you'll see your final price. Could be as low as $300, which is insane for $10,000 worth of software. So, all right. So I'm going to look at the chat window here, see if there's anything. The only thing I don't have is Moto Drum and the B3. Those, by the way, I gotta say, like, it's cool to see a company making cooler and cooler products and better. It just gets better and better to me, because I love those kinds of things, like a real B3 and an excellent Leslie, and then the Leslie has an effect on its own in Amplitude or T-Rax. I mean, for me, this is right up my alley, and so these are some of the things that are new, let's say, since the release of Total Studio 2. And now they're in Total Studio 3 Max. That's why I'm so excited. I get all excited because I'm like, this is like a big deal, because finally there's a way to get them all at a discount, and they're all good. I mean, obviously it depends on the style of music that you do, but if you do rock or you do anything where you call for real drums, acoustic drum sounds, and or a Hammond B3, there's no question in my mind, and of course you can try it for yourself, and I encourage that, your own ears, and you know what you like. So, but as far as industry opinions and respect, and people that I know and respect, musicians and many and producers and engineers, many that we'll be talking to, like Warren and others, have nothing but great things to say about those products. Hammond B3X is the de facto standard for. I mean, it's the official, even Hammond sanctioned plug-in version of that amazing organ. But even besides that, it's just a really good representation of it. And we're going to do an episode based on that as well. And I have a Hammond here too, so we'll fire it up and we'll get a little hands-on and have some fun, because this is a cool studio, isn't it? The new IK studio, called Sunrise Studios, because it's in Sunrise, Florida, but it's also on the East Coast. It happens to be Sunrise, the city, but because IK partners up with Sunset Sound, and But anyway, and we're going to be doing, by the way, next week we're going to be doing an episode. It'll be either be Thursday or Friday. You have to make sure you like and subscribe here, and then you'll be in the loop for the following, because we're going to be doing them every week, either Thursday or Friday, around this time, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I believe next week is going to be centered around Sunset Sound. So that's going to be fun. And like I said, it goes hand in hand with everything, but especially Moto drums. All right, so what else we got in the chat room here? T-Rax up. Wait, you're covering my chat. Sorry, I can't. There we go. So T-Rax, Sunset Sound, Amplitude 5 are top notch. I agree. Anything planned in the Moto line? I mean, I wouldn't be able to say. I hope so. I mean, I love it. You know, just the fact that we have Moto Drum and Moto Bass is a really good start. You know, obviously combined with things like Syntronic, where it's partial physical modeling and partial, you know, part samples. You can cover a lot of ground. That's one of the great things, you know, let's say about Total Studio 3 Max, until there may be eventually, I don't know, Moto something else in that series, which I'm all for. I don't know. I have nothing to do with the development of that stuff. I do develop sample libraries for Sample Tank, though. But that's what I was going to say is Total Studio 3 Max has 14,600 sounds. You know, it's insane. So in terms of, like, let's say, just wanting to be able to work on any style of music and be able to produce the whole thing, you can do that already with Total Studio 3 Max now. So you don't have to wait for another Moto. However, I'm sure it would be welcome because there are many fans of this type of technology and type of plugin, and I'm one of them. So, all right, what else we got? Can you position the mics in its overhead, such distances for recording the drum heads? Well, it's not really... it doesn't have, let's see. Now, you don't really have mic adjustment like that. You have adjustment of the drums themselves. So, yeah, it'd be kind of cool to do stuff like that. Like you're thinking like Amplitude, where you can move it with the cabinet and stuff like that. It's done differently, where it's more about the generated tone of the instrument as opposed to mics. And that's something where sampling does shine. You know, I've been talking about the difference between the two. They both coexist to me. I mean, like I said, you know, my whole company, Sonic Reality, is based on sampling, and that's what I do, and that's what I know. So I would be the biggest critic of this to say, oh, really? You know, well, let me see if, and I'm totally impressed with physical modeling and the things you can do that you can't do with sampling. But one of the things you can do with sampling is have room mics and it's recording. So you can have overheads and all those things. But at the moment, there's no in-between there, like Amplitude with VIR and all that stuff. That'd be cool. But I'm not sure that the technology, the physical modeling really works that way. It's more about, and again, I'm not the right person. I didn't develop it, so I don't know. But to me, I think it's more about the math and the physical modeling, the actual way that it's able to generate the tones and the properties, the physical properties. It's the modeling of the physical reality of the drum itself, the membrane, the shell, the way that it's tuned, the dampening, and all those elements and stuff like that. So it's not dealing with the difference between microphones. That's more of a recording and sampling thing. And even like the room, for instance, that you have is a simulation of a room. So it's like a reverb, essentially, you know, like Sunset Sound Studio Reverb, except for Sunset Sound Studio Reverb is like another level. Yeah, so it's different than mic mixing. It's just a different thought process. But anyway, to answer your question, hopefully that answers it. Do you think specialized plugins are kind of more productive than a big romper? Personally, you do? Yeah, I mean, in some ways, yeah. You saw how fast I was able to load. That, for one, is really kind of good for the creative flow. The other thing is this. You know, for me, I do my own productions, my own music, and I hire drummers most of the time, actually. But I use Moto Drum to mock up drum tracks for a drummer that I'm working with. And one of the cool things is not only can I, play the part or whatever and program it in, but I can pick a sound that would be close to what the sound I want. So I can make a suggestion to them, and they can go, oh, okay, so you want like a big sound or like a bonhomie kind of thing or whatever, and you're like, yeah. And it's a way to communicate actually by being able to change so many things. So that's kind of cool. And then the other thing is this. I'm recently using it now for drum triggering in a live show, one of my live shows, my band, mixing a live concert. And this one particular concert, there's a lot of bleed on the microphones live. And so like what that means is the snare mic is picking up too much hi-hat, too many other things, noise on the stage, and the kick drum as well. So when I want to raise them or put a compressor on them, it's too noisy, it's horrible. So I'm stuck. I've decided to create a trigger track using this plugin called Massey DRT. It's $100. It's good, works well inside Pro Tools, and can create a MIDI track out of, you have to kind of go through it one by one, make sure it's correct, but lining up with your kick and snare of the live. And then I triggered Moto drums, and I have to say, other people have done that. Tom Lord-Alge, Chris Lord-Alge, a lot of mixers trigger samples, and they've got their own little sample library that they trigger. But triggering Moto drum is even better because you can dial in the exact element that you need. So if you have a snare and you're like, I just need it to be louder. But maybe I just need the body of it or the thwack of it to cut through. Or maybe, and this has happened a few times, where you have someone has a snare and it doesn't have enough sizzle to it. And you try to brighten it up, and then it brightens up the hi-hat, which makes it sound shrill. So what I did, in fact, that happened in my mix. So what I did is I turned the EQ off on the original track and was like, you know what, I want some sizzle, but instead of boosting what's there, which is boosting the hi-hat too, I added in a snare from Moto, triggered it, that had the sizzle. And then, you saw what I did. Here, I'll show you the screen. You go in and you're like, let me edit element, and you're like, okay, so one more sizzle. First of all, I can adjust tension of the snare, even the volume of the bottom. Huh? Oh. So I can bring up the volume. Oh, I see. Sorry, it's one or the other. I can't really. I try to do everything. They call me Squids for a reason. The reason is, by the way, if you wanted to know, is because hands on keys and like Jeff Downes and Keith Emerson and whatever, and then feet on pedals. Anyway, so I can adjust the tension, and I was just going to bring up the volume of the bottom head. So if I wanted, I could. So I'm going to just do it. This is an overkill, but just to get the idea. That doesn't sound that great on its own, but that might be the missing element to my other snare. Now you could do this. You don't have to do it just with live tracks. You can blend it with samples. You can do other things. So it's a sound design tool as well as just a cool virtual instrument for drums. And that's what separates it, in my mind, from all the other virtual instruments that are drums. So even if you have another popular one, I don't even have to name them, but there's a lot of different popular ones. It's like, okay, that's great. I mean, if you like it, keep using it, but it doesn't do what this does. You might want Moto Drum as well, and you can blend it with the other, with the things that it can do. Something like that is a good, little tip. You can, let's see, I'm going to change a few things so you can just hear it as an element. So I'm making it less dampened. I can also bring down the volume of the bottom head, or the top head. Maybe that's what you want. Maybe you want more of the thwack to it. Actually, I want it higher pitched. Now, all of these things are done at the point of generating the sound. That's the difference. You can do some of these kinds of things with EQ and compression, get more punch, get more thwack, whatever. But it's like you can also do that with this inside the plugin and outside the plugin with T-Racks and other effect plugins. But just the fact that you can go in from the start, it's like being there in the session with the drummer and saying, you know, I'm not getting enough of this set. Can you turn it up a little bit? Now, you can't turn up the volume of the top head and the bottom head. You can kind of simulate that with miking by pulling it away, or things like that. So you actually have almost like a super reality here. But anyway, all right. So I think, if you have any other questions, ask. This is your chance to ask. But of course, I'm on Instagram, on IK Multimedia's Instagram, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, randomly through the week. So is Mark Mengi, another musician out in the field making music, but connecting other artists, doing presets for Amplitude, for instance, and coming to chat with them on IK's Instagram. And like I said, I'll be here every week celebrating the Total Studio 3 Max bundle release. And now what we're doing is, there's two videos. There's this video and there's the other video. They will stay on the IK channel, on the IK YouTube channel, and on Facebook as well, to watch later. And there will be new live streams happening once a week toward the end of the week. So, all right. So let's give away a Moto Drum. All right. This is how we're going to do it. I'm going to ask a question, and then you input a correct answer. This time there's going to be multiple correct answers, and then somebody from the IK social team will just pick a winner and tell me, and then I'll say who it is, okay? The question is this. It's really easy. There's 10 drum kits in Moto Drum, the full plugin. There's 2 in the SE, but let's say the full plugin 10. What's your favorite one? The name of your favorite drum kit in Moto Drum. And for extra credit, you can. What was the name of the snare? You don't have to for a win. Just name the drum kit you like. But for extra credit, what was the name of the snare that I liked? It was one of my favorite snares. I'll give you a hint. Ludwig makes it, and it's silver. All right. So, but that's not to win. You just have to name which kit you like. And if you don't know, I mentioned it. I showed it in this video. But you can also download a free version. A free demo version that you can use for free for 2 weeks of Moto Drum. If you haven't already done that, you might as well do that. Go to ikmultimedia.com and check it out for yourself. Of course, you won't have time to do that, and well, I don't know, maybe you can. Yeah, I see everybody. No, it's not a Black Beauty, the Ludwig, although that's a great one too. That's brass, actually. It's not steel, the Black Beauty. And this particular snare, I'll give you a few more hints about the snare. Don't worry, you don't have to know the snare to win. That's too hard. But I'll say it anyway since we're talking drums. This particular snare, John Bonham used like a deeper version of the snare. A lot of drums. It's probably one of the most popular snares, actually. And I have a deep one, 6.5, and I have a 5 or a 5.5 myself, like an actual one in my studio. For some variation. All right, and that's why it's one of my favorites. And I have one from the 60s and one from the 70s. I'm way into that stuff. That's another reason why I love these plugins, because IK recreates modern and vintage instruments like that. So it's really, really cool. All right, yep, Ludwig Superphonic. Well done, Steven. You know what? I'll tell you what, I said I wasn't going to do it, but I'm going to do it. Hit me up at Dave Kerzner on Instagram, if you're on Instagram. If not, I don't know, reach out to me. I'm going to give you some gear credits. This is what I do on Instagram all the time, by the way. 25 gear credits to Steven for the Superphonic, just as an extra. But someone else, including Steven, whoever it is, social team is going to tell me a winner here in a little bit for Moto Drum. Just let me know, guys. We got a little cool team here, social distance, of course. And they'll let me know. Were you first, Tate? All right, so hit me up, Tate. We know each other. But either way, I'll set you up too, Tate. Don't worry. But yeah. Oh, thanks. Okay, so Instagram. I'm just on Instagram, so it's the best way to reach me there. Okay. So any other questions? I think we're gonna. Do we have a winner? Oh, and anything or play something here. I mean, it's up to you. Oh, we have a winner. Okay, cool. Carla Gallarde. Congratulations. Now, I meant to say, I forgot that we needed your username. Your login, not your password, but just your username, not your email, your username for IK, your IK username. But if you want to type that in, great. If not, you can message us. Someone from IK will set you up with a serial number to download Moto Drum. Congratulations. That's cool. You're going to love it. And everybody else, I encourage you to, you've got options. The low price option, Moto Drums SE, Moto Bass SE. We didn't talk as much about Moto Bass. Warren did a little bit, but mainly because I'm trying to, over the next 6 weeks or so, however long it takes, I want to really cover the new stuff that has come out since Total Studio 2. Because I know that with all those crazy deals that were going on for Total Studio 2 Max, a lot of people have it. And are probably wondering, well, I already have this Total Studio, so why should I get this Total Studio? And like each week is going to be a reason why. It's like, well, because it now includes this. So now the first focused episode is this, because it includes Moto Drum. Total Studio 2 Max already included Moto Bass. But after we go over the new stuff, we can go back into the things that were originally in Total Studio 2 Max and pretty much anything. I mean, now that we have this awesome studio here at the facility in the United States, so we can, hands-on and get into anything you want. But that's the plan now. We're going to go through, and like I said, next week we'll talk about Sunset Sound. All right, so, somebody said, I almost pulled the trigger on Studio 2 and you held off to get Total Studio 3 Max and you got lucky. Well, just so you know, IK has designed the pricing and the upgrades and everything so that you can't lose either way. So you don't have to feel like, oh my God, I should have waited or whatever. That would be a drag. But I think you'll find that even if you took advantage the upgrade paths, and if you took advantage of a sale or you took this and that within the vicinity of the release, that you're not going to kick yourself. So if you waited, it's a great deal. Although it might even be a better deal if you bought something before an upgrade anyway. But either way, I think there's if you already own Total Studio 2 Max, there's just every reason to get you get a discount, $4.99, or even as low as $300 after the coupon's in there, and then it's a no-brainer because for $300, for example, you get Moto Drum, which is itself $300, I believe, isn't it, or is it $199? You know, Ryan wasn't being expected to ask. I'm invisible. I'm not supposed to be here. That's my Ed McMahon. Like, it's okay. There's people. Okay, and then. There's Sunset Sound. There's all of the Amplitude. There's Amplitude 5 Max and all of the artist collections in there. There's the tape machines. There's Space Delay. There's those extra 8 sample libraries, and it's like all of that for $300 or $4.99 for the upgrade. It's a no-brainer. So either way, but I do think, and Leslie and Hammond B3X. This is just premium choice stuff. Okay, yeah, so Moto's $2.99 and then it's $1.99 for the cross grade. So IK has this really good reward program. In fact, I might as well mention real quick. There's upgrade, cross grade. Cross grade is like an upgrade, but from another product. So an upgrade would be, I have Moto Drums SE. I want to get the full Moto Drum. That's an upgrade. But if I have Moto Bass SE and I want to get Moto Drum, that's a cross grade. Okay. And then the other way that IK rewards you is you get jam points. This is when you buy products, they show up in your IK user area, and it's just IK bucks that you can spend on the next product. So it's another way. Check to see what you have there, because I've definitely seen in the chats and stuff when we do this, people go, I had no idea. I had $40 in jam points. I'm like, I got a great deal, and they're all happy. So. But that's the point of it, rewarding your loyalty and everything. And I appreciate your loyalty following me on IK's Instagram channel and now here on Facebook and YouTube. So I'm going to sign off. I hope you all have a great weekend. And thank you for watching IK Multimedia. Make sure you like and subscribe, and we'll see you again soon.